Welcome into Sideline Signal. I'm Andrew, as always, joined by Tyler. We're back with yet another week of our live reactions to the College Football Playoff Committee rankings when they're revealed. We had a crazy weekend with a lot of upsets that's going to shake up the college football playoffs. Ole Miss lose, Alabama lose, Indiana lose, Colorado lose, BYU lose. A lot of crazy games that are going to impact these rankings. We're only a few moments away from being able to see the top 25 as they come out. How are you doing, Tyler? What are you looking forward to the most in these rankings?
I'm doing great. Did really well with the prediction video this weekend, so I'm pretty happy about that. I am most interested to see, there's a couple of things that I want to see. First off, where does Indiana drop to? Are they going to be in that 8-9 range, or are they even going to drop further than that? That is what I'm wondering. Also, where are the SEC teams going to be slotted? Obviously, as of right now, I would assume that Tennessee and Georgia are in, and as well as Texas, of course, but I don't know for sure. Tennessee could be sitting at that 13 spot or move up, jump in. I don't know. Georgia did not play very convincingly against UMass this past weekend. Does that hurt them? I have no idea. If you guys watched my resume rankings video last night, obviously Georgia has a way better resume than they do an eye test at the record. So that'll be interesting to see. And then my last kind of thing is, where is ASU? That's what I want to know. Obviously, they were sitting there at, I believe it was 18, 19. I forget what the exact number was, but do they jump into the playoff picture, or are they still sitting there at like 16 or 17?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. And this has been one of the weeks where I was super unsure of what was going to happen with the rankings. I think Alabama will probably be right on the outside of the top 12, which is crazy to say because they're a three-loss team with two unranked losses. But I'm really unsure. Like you said, I want to see where Arizona State is too. I think it's justifiable considering they're currently atop of the Big 12 with that big win at home versus BYU that they, get over the hump and get into the playoffs. I hope that SMU also, like you said, SMU needs to be a top 12 team. I would be very upset if they're still on the outside looking in. But yeah, teams like Clemson and South Carolina, that's going to be interesting to see where they kind of rise to. But Army, we'll see if they still stay top 25. Obviously, they lost to Notre Dame. Their playoff chances are likely finished. But there's going to be a lot that we can take away from this week's rankings. They're showing the committee right now with their
Yeah.
Dell laptops looking all smug. So only
I
time.
am praying. I have a sliver of hope that the committee actually comes through and gives us a good ranking instead of just by brand. Because I'm going to be honest with you guys, we've talked about this ad nauseum every single show that we've done this. But Texas, Penn State, and Miami probably have the three worst resumes in the top 12 right now, besides maybe Indiana. But even Indiana crushed all of the teams that they played that were bad. Penn State just beat Minnesota by one. And Andrew said if they didn't, what was it, a fake field goal, you said?
It's a
If
fake punt, 4th and 1 on their own. I think it was 35.
Yeah, so if they didn't get that, they probably lose that game. So are they going to get penalized for it, or are they still sitting there at four? Uh, I hope not, and I agree with you. Like a team like SMU, better resume than those three teams that I just listed.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm also curious to see. We talked about this a little before, obviously, when we were watching that long game between Memphis and Michigan State before the ranking show. I'm really curious to see if Notre Dame jumps Penn State. I think it's justifiable that Notre Dame could go up into the fourth spot in the country because we've clearly seen that the committee does not care that they lost by three at home to NIU on week two. So taking that into consideration, they have a better body of work than Penn State. I could argue they have a better body of work than Texas does. Although I don't think they would jump Texas at three, but I'm curious to see how high Notre Dame rise to with that convincing, dominating win at Yankee Stadium over Army.
Yeah, certainly. And I also talking about the American conferences. They're getting into it here. I'm waiting for you to see it on your screen. But
Colorado starting off,
yeah,
dropping.
all right. So Colorado at 25. I'll get to my point in a second when they pop up.
Yeah,
But just think American Conference.
of course. Kansas State coming back into the top 25.
Yep.
I think a lot of that's just because they're unsure who's going to shake up with the teams in the Big
Yeah,
12
that's pretty
title
clear.
game. Illinois, I could do with or without, they win.
Crazy, crazy game
Yeah.
they just had
That,
this past weekend at
that was
Rutgers.
it, 4th and 14.
They
With the
kicked
field
the
goal, yeah.
You 52-yard field goal. Shiano ices them. They throw the Hail Mary, hit a little dig route. The guy sprints into the end zone, win the game.
Yep.
Ridiculous.
UNLV at 22, which makes sense. It's setting up looking like Colorado State lost to Fresno State this weekend, so it looks like it should be UNLV Boise State again in
Yeah.
the Mountain West Championship. Missouri 21, I still don't think they really deserve to be a top 25 team.
I don't yeah, I don't like that.
A&M down to 20. That's big.
That is
Obviously,
pretty
they
big.
lose an OT to Auburn. I'm not surprised, but I kind of am.
So they're definitely out.
Yes, unless they win the SEC.
And the next team shows me that they're also probably out. Unless they
BYU,
win
yeah.
the
BYU's only path
BYU at
is to
19.
win. Their path is only to win the Big 12.
And I don't think they need any help yet. Wow. This is surprising. Wait for you to see it here. But I mean, they weren't listed yet, but this team was unranked two
Iowa
weeks
State,
ago.
yeah, no kidding. After the loss to Houston, but obviously, like I said, they have a path to the Big 12 title game, as do pretty much half of the Big 12. Interesting.
Yep,
Tulane
interesting.
up to 17. Okay,
So
yeah. Tulane,
here's
that
oh
means Army's unranked. So Tulane look like to be the next best if Boise State are to fall. But obviously, they would have to beat Army in the AAC championship.
that's what I wanted to talk about. Is that Tulane would be that group of five champ if
Arizona
Boise State
State
doesn't
only
win.
move up 5 to
Yeah.
16.
Yeah. Okay. Guys, we're gonna be a little bit upset. I can already tell. Oh my goodness, this is the nightmare scenario. 15 just popped up for me.
I
I
haven't
already
seen
know what 14 and 13 look like somehow, some way. Are you
15 South
serious?
Carolina. Wow.
All right, South Carolina at 15 has a better resume than both of the next two teams that they're pulling up, and I already know that.
Well, where's Clemson too?
I gotta think Clemson is going to be sitting there at 12.
I haven't seen 14 yet, but wow, I'm surprised South Carolina, you know, I kind of would put them over Alabama, maybe, but at least Ole Miss I would put them over. But it's the head to head. It's because Ole Miss
Yeah.
beat them by 21. Okay. So both Alabama and Ole Miss are in contention still. It's clear as day.
Yeah. Now,
15, 14, both SEC.
I'm really gonna freak out if 13 is Clemson because there's a chance that happens.
Well, that's where the question comes. If Clemson's at 13, they'll still theoretically, if they can beat South Carolina, I think that the winner of that game this weekend, Clemson, South Carolina, will be a playoff contender. Bama down to 13. Okay.
Yeah.
So Clemson's in the top 12 as we speak.
That tells me, folks, is that if Texas A&M beats Texas, or no, sorry, if yeah, no, yeah, if Texas A&M beats Texas and beats Georgia, Alabama's in, as long as the team in front of them loses, preferably two loss.
I agree. Or if Vandy knock off Tennessee this weekend.
Yep.
So
Wow.
I'm assuming Clemson will go in here as the 12.
They really liked Kalen DeBoer. They're trying to save his job single-handedly right now.
And Lane Kiffin, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Arizona State isn't above all three
Yeah,
of
that's pretty wild. There's no reason
Clemson
in
at
my mind.
12. Okay. I
Yeah,
like that.
Clemson's
They
at 12.
they have a shot. They need Miami to lose to Syracuse this weekend for them to make it into the ACC title game. But if they beat South Carolina and don't get in, I think that they get in as an at-large.
That's what I was gonna say to you. If they win this weekend, do you think they still hold that 12 spot, or do you think they could even move up?
I think the winner, I really do believe, well, Clemson will move up if they beat South Carolina. Yeah, I think they'll get like the 10 seed. But I think either way, the winner between South Carolina and Clemson should probably be in the playoffs as probably the 12 seed, or they would be the 11 most likely because whoever is the worst ranked of the champions, like right now, I'm sure Arizona State will probably be that team. They'll probably be
Yeah.
the 12 seed in this bracket. So I think the winner this weekend, Boise State at 11. Okay. They'll be the 4 seed again, obviously. Um,
I would have liked to see them higher, but I've been preaching that all year,
yeah.
and
It's
it's not gonna happen.
It's because they're Mountain West. That's why they're not going to. I mean, if they would have beaten Oregon week 2, they would probably be, hell, they'd probably have a shot at being like number 1. No, I'm kidding. They'd probably be like 5th or 4th. But
Well, that's the thing is like Boise State, aside from Ohio State playing in the Big Ten and beating Indiana, who has been seen as like a fake team. What's the difference between Ohio State's resume and Boise State's resume besides, I guess, the teams that they play?
Probably just the win over Penn State.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I forgot about Penn
It's
State.
all good. Yeah.
Really the difference.
All right. So are we going to see Indiana at 10? Okay.
I
As I
know the answer. Yeah.
Indiana at 10. I get it. Like I said, I think right now, because of all the chaos, they deserve to stay in the playoffs. I'm okay with that. They lose in convincing fashion at the shoe. Not upset about it. SMU up to 9. I am
Love that.
so happy that
Love
Southern
that.
Methodist and Kevin Jennings, they're finally getting the respect they deserve. This is
They
a good football team that nobody is talking about. I'm so happy that they've finally gotten respect.
they should be higher than this. And I have a feeling Miami's going to be sitting there at 8 and they should be flipped.
I agree, and I think it's going to set up obviously the conference title game, assuming Miami go and beat Syracuse this weekend. But
Okay. I was wrong.
we have an who's at 8 then? Let's see.
I don't like this at all. I
Tennessee up
forgot about
3
them.
spots. Wow.
I don't
Yeah,
like that.
I mean, I'd be okay. I would be okay if they flipped SMU and Tennessee.
Yes.
I think
But
that would be better.
you went out of your way to say that a two-loss SEC team is better than a one-loss ACC team, and SMU has done everything that they possibly can.
Yeah, and SMU's only loss being to BYU, where Tennessee lost to Arkansas and Georgia. Obviously, the Georgia loss, you can kind of take it as it is, but obviously, you compare losses Arkansas to BYU. BYU's a better loss, but they also have beaten Alabama. Georgia at 7, so Miami's top 6 in the country.
Yeah, that is absolutely wild. I disagree. I do not like it.
Because I'll be honest, while the scoreline was a lot better than it seemed, that game
That
was
game was
not.
not.
Wake Forest played a great game against Miami. Miami, again, just had a convincing fourth quarter, similarly to the Duke game, where it was
Yeah.
really competitive. And then the fourth quarter comes along and it looks like it's a blowout.
And I doubt many of you watched that game unless you were a Miami fan, but Wake Forest, if they had some semblance of coaching, would have won that game.
I agree. There we go. Miami at the 6. So
Wow.
we'll see if Mario Cristobal and Cam Ward can get it done. And, obviously against Syracuse at the Carrier Dome this weekend. And then potentially, if they are to win that game against SMU in the ACC title game.
So my first takeaway, without a doubt, is that Tennessee won the weekend.
Yes.
Without a doubt. They played UTEP and all the SEC teams in front of them lost besides Georgia and Texas. They
Yep.
won. They're about 100% in as long as they take care of Vandy.
So, assuming I have a question for you, hopefully it doesn't overlap, but assuming it's SMU Miami in the ACC title game, do you think the loser of that game gets into the playoffs?
I think they should. I think they will as well, but I think it'll be the 11th seed without a doubt.
Interesting. Yeah. Notre Dame up to 5.
Yeah,
Again,
okay.
Indiana dropping allowed
We'll
them to
take
move
that.
up 1 spot. Although, like I said, I would have personally liked to see them go over Penn State.
Hmm.
I'm not upset about it though. Like it's not. I'm not going to die on this hill that Notre Dame should be above Penn State. Top four
Penn,
should remain the same.
I mean, it's like, what do we need? Like, I feel like if you're in a spot, the way the committee has done it, if you're in a spot, we're not going to move you from that spot unless you lose,
Yeah.
even if it's a close win against a really bad team.
Hmm.
If you're in that spot, we're not going to move you. And I don't like that. It should be a week to week thing. That's why we do this.
I agree, and I feel like the committee just forgets that they struggled against Bowling Green. They
Yeah.
beat USC in overtime. Now they've struggled against Minnesota. They've now lost to Ohio State, but obviously the top four being Penn State, then Texas, Ohio State, and then Oregon. It remains the same as the last 2 weeks.
Not to mention that game, the score of that game was 20-13. It was not as close as 20-13 either. I would put it pretty close to what Indiana just did this past weekend.
Exactly. And then now looking at the bracket, Arizona State are the Big 12 champion predicted. First two teams out are Clemson and Alabama. Interesting. Bama play the Iron Bowl. All right. Ohio State would take on Arizona State in the opening round. That would be another great running backs matchup. I think no
Yes, it
matter
would.
who wins that top quadrant, Arizona State, Ohio State, and Boise State are just running back central,
Yeah.
which would be crazy. Cam
Um,
Skadaboo, obviously, Quinshon
but
Judkins, Trayvon Henderson,
we
Ashton.
get we get a rematch of Tennessee, Georgia. That's what it would be in the 8-9. Winner plays Oregon. Then Indiana versus Penn State, which is a matchup that should have happened in the regular season, would matchup, and then SMU Notre Dame being the other kind of thing. So what do you think? Or were they closer to what you wanted to see, or
I would say yes. I'd say this is a better bracket than we've seen lately. I don't think it's perfect still. I think
yeah,
some teams like Miami are a little too high. I think, like I said, when we talked about it, I would like to see Tennessee and SMU flipped. But overall, I think for the most part that this is what the bracket should look like. I wish, obviously, it's just the way it's falling right now. I don't want to see conference play in the opening round. I really would like to see, I don't want to watch Tennessee, Georgia
yeah.
again in the opening round. I think Indiana, Penn State could be interesting, but I would like to see because there's been a lot of talk and a lot of arguments on which conference is the best this year between the SEC and the Big Ten. So I'd like to see those matchups happen, especially early in the first round, to see what is, which conference plays better. Um,
As
who knows?
as as numbers go, like if you were doing it based solely on the numbers, Georgia would play Indiana. It would be the 7-10 matchup, and I'm just going to go out on a limb there and say that that one wouldn't be very pretty. And, I am part of the SEC bias, and Andrew is a newly acquired Big Ten bias guy. But, I mean, you think about it, like Indiana, what, the third best team in the Big Ten? Uh, I would argue that they would lose to every single SEC team besides Missouri in the top 25.
You could make an argument they're the fourth best Big Ten team.
Okay, so fourth best. Sorry, that's
Yeah,
my bad.
you're good.
But I think Indiana would lose to every single SEC team in the top 25 right now, besides Missouri.
Potentially. I think South Carolina would be an interesting game, but I don't necessarily disagree with you. I do want to ask though, obviously, because we're getting towards the end of our time recording. Do you think right now this is the 12 teams that deserve the playoffs the most?
Uh, I'm gonna have to go with yeah. I think as long as this goes, from beginning to end, what has been put out, I would say that these 12 teams deserve it the most. The only one that I could possibly say is that I think South Carolina kind of deserves it as much as Miami does. It's just the record is different. Because South Carolina ran the gauntlet and honestly went 500 in those games, which is pretty impressive. You think if a team like Florida was South Carolina, like I do wonder if it would be different because Florida's had the slightly harder schedule. Like they had the hardest schedule in the FBS by far. And obviously, you lose a ranked matchup in Florida State. But I don't know. I think South Carolina kind of deserves it as much as Miami because I'm going to be a Miami hater until the season ends because I just don't know what they've done besides have Cam Ward that makes them so impressive. What do you think?
I would say right now, my issue is more with the ordering. I think the seating could be mixed around a little bit better, but I would tend to agree that I think that the top 12 looks like the perfect balance of the teams that deserve it versus also being the best teams on paper. I think the committee got it right with who's in right now. I would have been very upset, obviously, if a team like Alabama would have stayed in the playoffs. But obviously, they still have a path. It's hard to say. We really don't know because there's still some really influential games that are left to be played this season, just in the rivalry week games. So I want to say, as things stand, if the season were to have ended today, I would be completely okay with this playoff being the way it is.
Okay.
Now, asking you, this is probably my final question of the night. So, depending on your thoughts, and if you have any more, right now, looking at the bracket, which team in the playoffs right now do you think have the biggest chance of not making the playoffs 2, 3 weeks from now?
So of the 12 that are in right now,
Yeah, who do you think has the biggest odds of being left out?
I'm gonna have to go ahead and this is gonna be surprising. I think it's Notre Dame. I
Wow.
don't think we're paying attention to it, but they have to go to USC this week. USC is not as bad as their record says. They aren't. That's just simply put. They were a top 15 team in the country week two. And obviously Jordan Mailata's given them a bit of a spark, even though Miller Moss was playing great. So there's a bit of a difference, but like that is a trap game. It is a lazy game. I don't know what time it is, but I know the Coliseum's not going to be packed. It's going to be a lackadaisical environment, and if they lose that game, they got to be out, in my opinion.
Interesting. I'm looking up on ESPN right now to tell you what time. That game is a 3:30 Eastern kickoff.
Okay, yeah, so lazy. It's lazy. You're jet lagged. You're really playing that game at what? So that would be
That'd be 12:30.
1 o'clock or
Yeah.
12 o'clock. Yeah, 12 o'clock. Uh, Interesting. Because I do think that the reason why I say that is because if they lose that game, that's the only thing they can prove because they don't have a conference title game. If I had to go with my second there, I would honestly say, I hate to say it, but SMU. I hate to say that because I think that even if SMU loses it to Miami, they should still be in. But I don't think they would be.
I agree, and that was the team I was going to go with because here's where I stand, and it concerns me is that they will, let's say they win this weekend, and then Clemson beat South Carolina, and then SMU lose to Miami in the ACC title game. It scares me that they would bump a team like Clemson and even a team like Alabama if they win in the Iron Bowl. They would bring those two up because they say, well, SMU, we've seen how they've ranked SMU in these committee rankings lately. It doesn't seem like they really want to put SMU
No.
in. So I'm concerned that if they lose this game, I mean, honestly, South Carolina too. If South Carolina beat Clemson and SMU drop it, I wouldn't be surprised because they're only at 9 right now. Nine
Yeah.
is very droppable for the committee. And most of these teams that are in aren't playing. Tennessee aren't playing in the SEC title game. Indiana won't be playing in the Big Ten title game unless Penn State and Ohio State both lose this weekend. So I mean, Penn State too. Penn State won't play in the Big Ten title game. There's a lot of teams not playing for their title games that are in the playoffs as we stand. So they're the team that has something to lose. I think Georgia would probably still get in if they lose to either A&M or Texas this in the SEC title game. Oregon and Ohio State would both get in if they play each other in the Big Ten title game, no matter how that goes. So really, right now, you could maybe say Miami too, but the ACC championship game really stands to lose the most in my eyes.
Yeah, of the three teams in this format, it would that are the most kickable. It would be Notre Dame, SMU, and Miami.
Yeah,
Just because Indiana gets to play a 1-10 Purdue
yeah,
this week, and if they lose that game, they didn't deserve to even be in the top 25.
agree.
But like Texas is just about 100% in, even if they lose this weekend. So yeah, if it's gonna move, it's gonna move from there. And I would hate that because I've been rooting for SMU. We both have the entire season, but the chips are gonna fall where they are. We can't really control that.
Agreed. And I also didn't bring up Arizona State just because we don't know who the Big 12 champ's going to
Yeah.
be. Right now, that's the only reason they're in the playoffs. So that one I didn't want to take into consideration because we truly just don't know. And it clearly shows that there's going to be no Big 12 at-large bids. It's really just going to be the champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, but very interesting rankings. Like I said, I can't say that I'm upset, but I wouldn't say it's perfect. I think the teams are right, but the order is a little off. But other than that, I'm content. And you have any finishing thoughts?
I'm just, I would tend to agree with you. It's mostly order things. I would like them to rely a bit more on the schedule, the resume, like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, a team almost loses to Bowling Green at home, but we're holding the SMU week 1 loss against them. It kind of feels like they are. So I don't know. I really don't know. This neglectfulness almost of SMU is making me upset because a team like Texas and a team like Penn State have been anything but impressive for most of the season against lower tier competition. So
Yeah, it's interesting spot to be left off with. Obviously, we go into Thanksgiving weekend, of course, but rivalry weekend for college football, and then we will finally get our conference championships finalized. It's a great time to be alive if you're a college football fan. I know we're both fired up,
yep.
but we'll leave it off at that. Pretty good rankings. Wish the order was a little different. But other than that, it's been Andrew as always, joined by Tyler. It's been another episode of our college football show for Sideline Signal. Thank you so much for watching. If you like content like this, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. Make sure to follow us on TikTok as well at Sideline Signal, where we post a lot more content there. Other than that, this has been another episode from us. Make sure to get out and watch college football this weekend.